Welcome back to another episode. And today, I'm actually not doing an entire series review. I'm talking about one particular game, and that is Ghost Warrior Spriggan. So the company that created Spriggan is actually Compile. And Compile created a lot of great shooters back in the day. One of them was Blazing Lasers, and another one is Musha. Now, Spriggan was actually released in July 1991 on the CD-ROM 2 system on the PC Engine in Japan. And I actually think it's one of the greatest shooters on the system, and I loved it ever since I first saw it. And I played a lot of shooters on the PC Engine, but I actually think Spriggan is actually my favorite. So my story about Spriggan is this. Back in 1991, I think it was a few months before Christmas, me and my parents actually went to our local mall, and there was something unusual. It was just, as I said, just before Christmas, so there was actually a stall set up, and the person there was actually selling PC Engine games, which at that time, to actually see import video games in any store in your local mall was a sight to behold. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I saw Spriggan in the glass countertop that he had, and I looked and I was like, it's so funny. I actually made my decision just based on looking at it. I think I actually saw in a Game Fan magazine. I think I saw some of the artwork for it before. And I was like, I know that game. I know it's a shooter game, and I definitely would love to get this for Christmas. And I remember it had a price tag of like $75 to $80. You have to remember, import games back then were very, very expensive. So my parents were with me, and I'm like, oh, I would sure love to get that for Christmas. And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Anyways, Christmas morning, I was lucky enough to wake up to Ys 3 on the TurboGrafx CD-ROM system, and Ghost Warrior Spriggan. And I gotta tell you, I was blown away by this game. This game made the entire system worth it to me. And I didn't have a lot of games on the TurboGrafx CD, but this game really made it worth it to me. The graphics were stupendous. The sound was unbelievable, but I'll get to that stuff in a second. So it actually takes place in an alternate fantasy feudal Japan setting, if you want to call it that, with a lot of sci-fi elements. You play as a boy and girl character who are actually controlling Spriggan against a gigantic invasion from a giant floating battle fortress. It's a wild game. You actually fight wizards and robots, and that's all through 7 stages. And the one thing I really liked was the power-up system in this game. You actually powered up your weapons by collecting orbs. And there was 4 types of orbs. There was a blue orb, green orb, yellow orb, and a red orb. And depending on what order you had them in, you would get different weapons from that. And it's really cool. If you didn't want to power up your weapons, you could actually just sacrifice the orbs as bombs. And one of my strategies that I love to use was I'd actually get to a boss character and I'd shoot the living crap out of it. Then I'd actually drop all of my orbs on it as like final bombs. So that would always make sure that I would actually destroy that boss. And out of all the combination of orbs that you could get, my favorite was green, green, yellow. That created a big spread across the screen of green firepower, and I loved it. That was actually my preferred weapon of choice. You could also do yellow, yellow, green. It created the same effect. We live in a time now with so many bullet hell shooters and just so many shooters in general. There's been thousands created. But at the time, Ghost Warrior Spriggan was actually the greatest shooter that I'd ever seen, besides Neo Geo games. And what made it stand out was the graphics. The graphics were really colorful, really detailed on the system. I actually will go as far to say some of the best graphics on the Turbo CD. I really think that they were. And some great animation, imaginative bosses, really long levels at times. Like, I couldn't believe some of these levels would go on forever. I loved it. And just the effects and some of the monster designs. I could really go on about Spriggan's level designs and all of that stuff. I just thought it was just fantastic. But some of the best looking on the system, as I say. Another thing I really want to talk about is the cinemas. I really enjoyed the cinemas in these games, and they were pretty standard fare for PC Engine games back then, where it would just basically be a character and the mouth would be moving. That would be it. Or they'd show the robot just move through the sky, with some parallax scrolling, a little bit of that, but not a lot compared to cinemas nowadays. But I love the big fortress coming towards the land, and the evil lord, and all the techno wizards and all that kind of stuff, and all the mechs flying. I love that. I thought these cinemas were great. Now I get to the music. And besides Ys, I would actually go as far to say that Spriggan has some of the best music on the system. To me personally, I actually love so many PC Engine soundtracks in general, but I love Spriggan. Maybe it was the time it came out, maybe, because there wasn't soundtracks like this for video games, not too many. And I was just blown away with the soundtrack, and I still listen to it this day, and I still think it actually holds up very, very well. And There's some music that's just very atmospheric. You know, some of the spider level stands out to me when you're actually going through that level. I love that music. But just the opening music in general, and the end castle music when you finally get there. There's a lot of great PC Engine soundtracks, and I would just put Spriggan very high among them. Now, actually, what blew me away is I actually checked out eBay, and this game actually goes for a lot of money now. This game is actually like $60, $70, which for an old PC Engine shooter game is quite a lot. I was actually blown away by that. And for anybody who's interested as well, there was a sequel. There was Spriggan Mark II on the PC Engine. It came out a year later in 1992. And to be honest, it was a side view-esque shooter with some really nice cinemas, but it just didn't hold up to the magic that was created in the first Spriggan. I thought this game really got it, so well with the level designs, the idea of mixing kind of like feudal Japan with sci-fi settings. I think that this game really got it well, but I think Mark II wasn't as good as this game, sadly. So anyways, guys, I just wanted to share some of my love for Ghost Warrior Spriggan. A wonderful, wonderful game. Another great shooter on the PC Engine. So anyways, guys, until next time.